hello world is a song.
I hope it's not beefaroni.
Barfaroni.
Barfaroni.
It's not, but it's something equally as disgusting. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay, are you guys ready?
We are.
Okay. Welcome to the Pop Culture Preservation Society, the podcast for people born in the big wheel generation who have lots of uses for pennies, like buying your milk at school.
We believe our Gen X childhoods gave us unforgettable songs, stories, characters, and images. And if we don't talk about them, they'll disappear, like Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition.
And today, we'll be saving the one constant in everybody's life from ages 5 to 18. That would be the daily meal taken at long tables in basement cafeterias and converted gyms, the school lunch.
I'm Carolyn.
I'm Kristen.
And I'm Michelle, and we are your pop culture preservationists.
Woot woot. Okay, so this is where I'll launch into the introduction. So today I think we've stumbled upon what might be the number one most universal thing amongst Gen Xers. Because if you went to school, which we all did, by law, you have experience with school lunch. Whether you bought or brought your lunch, you had to eat in the middle of the day. And that singular act created memories that came flooding in. When we posted a simple question about school lunch on our social media, we came very close to breaking the internet. And we have to give credit where credit is due, because today's topic comes courtesy of one of our listeners/followers, who was also a former guest on the show when we talked about the crazy food fads of the Gen X era. So naturally, when she sent us this idea, we invited her back on the show. Today, our special guest is actor, comedian, and chef Erica Wides, the host of Funny People Making Food on YouTube and Instagram. Erica, welcome to the Pop Culture Preservation Society.
Thank you, friends. Woo! Oh my God, can you hear the sirens in the background?
Yeah.
Oh, hello, New York City.
Exactly. That's so exciting. We've got some atmosphere going.
So you're trying to sleep.
Can you tell us, Erica, tell us a little bit about Funny People Making Food.
Okay, so funny people making. So, Funny People Making Food is, so it was a web series that I created a few years ago on YouTube. It was sort of inspired by comedians in cars getting coffee, Jerry Seinfeld's Netflix series, because I love food and I love comedy, and I'm also like a commercial actor. And what I wanted to do was kind of create a little series where I went into the homes of comedians and cooked with them and talked with them and joked around with them. And what I really wanted to kind of get at was like the heart of whether their food influenced their comedy, like if their food life, like childhood food life and experience influenced their comedy or not at all, but you know, it's a good question to ask. And so we did like 6 complete episodes of that. They're on YouTube. But those are very long and very expensive to produce. As you know, self-production is expensive. So then what I decided a few months ago was to just basically chop those up and put them on Instagram in little tiny clips. And then we ran out of material. So then I just started doing food content on Instagram. So anyway, that's what both accounts are Funny People Making Food, and on TikTok also. But the original OG 6 episodes are on YouTube, and you should all go watch them and subscribe and comment and like.
They're super funny. They're very fun. And there's one thing in particular where I just found this out, because this is one thing that changed my life. And apparently it changed a lot of people's lives, because when they saw it, your Instagram just blew up. And it was how to poach an egg in the microwave.
Yeah, which is something I've been doing for years. And I was just sort of like, okay, what are we going to do for today's clip? And I did the egg in the microwave. And at that point, I had about 1,500 followers. And within like 2 weeks, I was at 100,000, and now I'm at almost 200,000. And that video got 33 million views.
Come on.
Like
So,
more
Erica,
than the population of Canada.
oh yeah.
Every Canadian.
You know, now that we're such good friends, you're saying it would be fine if we also reposted the poaching the egg in the microwave video on Culture Preservation Society, right? That's
Totally.
what I feel like. Yeah, sure. Okay, good. Excellent. We'll put a Gen X spin on it. We'll put a Gen X spin on it. We'll do it in like some Pyrex or something.
That's what it was in, a little bit.
is.
Pyrex.
Yeah.
It's a vintage Pyrex dish. They're the
that's
same
right.
Pyrex dishes I had in my
Pyrex
home.
custard cup.
Yeah.
And we are the microwave generation
We really are
are.
because we
We're
were at home
one.
by ourselves.
to have them. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So there you
true.
go. We own
This
the
is
microwave.
I'm so happy to have you here today because I think you're going to chime in with some really interesting stuff. So let's launch into the actual school lunch. I want to start with the lunch lady. The lunch lady is a really prominent figure. Like the lunch lady's as big as the school principal in terms of how it's burned in your brain. In my school, it was Verna, and Verna would stroll into the cafeteria with a cart, and she would stand there at the cart. And when you were all done, you could bring your tray and show Verna that you had eaten all of your lunch, and then she would take out a piece of white bread and she would dig into a giant tub of peanut butter and give you peanut butter bread.
Why?
That's the most random thing I've ever heard in my life.
And
Why
why
didn't
is a
she,
really
like-
good question.
But why didn't she like reach into a bag and give you like an ice cream sandwich or a ho-ho?
Peanut butter bread.
Or
Yeah. hmm I'm guessing because there was excess bread and excess peanut butter.
Wait,
I mean,
wait, wait.
it was like a Home Depot orange bucket full of peanut butter.
And
It
did
was
she take
government
her
surplus.
hand
Yes.
with the like she didn't take a knife, glop it in the peanut butter and, slap it on the bread. She took the bread and dipped it in the peanut butter?
No. It's just
Oh,
normal
okay.
making
That's
of
what it
peanut butter
sounded
bread.
like.
Yes.
It sounded
Sorry.
like,
Yeah, like-
it sounded like she took a piece of white bread and just like scraped it in a
No.
bucket of peanut butter. Okay.
What
good.
I
Thank
thought
God.
you were about to say was that she took the bread and she wiped your tray with it
I
of
did
any
too.
leftovers and then made you eat that.
Because everything had gravy.
Yeah.
So he wanted to sop up all the gravy.
Wait a minute.
So
So,
much
you
gravy.
ate your lunch and then you got a peanut butter sandwich as like a bonus?
Yeah, it's a treat for some reason, and it
Verna
felt like
contributing
brainwashing.
to the overweight children in
Yeah.
the
I mean,
70s.
I was a fat kid. I would
100%.
have been even fatter.
And you had to eat. I mean, it's so old school. You had to eat all of your food, and then you'd get more food.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm thinking a sticker.
Yeah.
Maybe a pencil eraser, like one of those little
apple.
those little pencil erasers with the wobbly legs and
Uh-huh.
the arms or something.
That's insane. I think we can just end the show on that.
There you go,
crazy.
Verna. Thank
Good.
you, Verna. A
I
tribute to
don't-
Verna. And she cut, and I'm sure I'm going to describe Verna for you, and I'm sure this is what your lunch lady was too. Of course, you have to have a uniform. How can you serve food not wearing a uniform? And so she looks like a waitress from Alice, right? And then, and she's like shaped like an apple, and she's got a hairnet on.
A hairnet, for sure.
And she's probably 93 and a half years old. Now, if I asked, they'd probably say she was 43.
Yeah.
And I'd go, no! But she was
Totally.
ancient. And we loved Verna just because of the peanut butter bread.
Yeah, we had more than one lunch lady. We had like an ensemble, and there was like the head lunch lady. Like you remember
Oh,
her?
very important.
She's the one you would bring the lunch count to in the in the morning, like when your teacher would say, "How many
the
are
lunch count."
people are buying this?"
about that.
And you'd raise your hand, and
Yes.
then someone, the teacher's pet, probably
Lunch
me,
duty.
got to just march down, and the head Verna of our cafeteria, you would hand her the lunch count for the day. So.
I totally forgot
Yeah.
that was a job. It was like
Yes.
the lights person,
was
the
the
person who ran the
coveted.
movie
That's right.
projector. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you say, this is something I'm very interested in. Did you guys call it hot lunch and cold lunch?
Yeah.
Okay, so you give the
Hot
hot
lunch,
lunch
yeah.
count
Hot
to
lunch, yeah.
Verna.
But also,
Yeah.
if you were the hot lunch count person, in my school, your teacher gave you like their bag lunch to take to the teacher's lounge to put in the fridge for them.
Oh,
Special.
And you'd go in and you'd like open the door and it would be like you were walking into like a burning coal mine, like with the smoke, like all the cigarette smoke.
Oh,
So
back in the
bad.
70s,
You'd open the
sure,
door and it
yeah.
was like whoosh, like this.
Yes.
yeah.
But you could get in the teacher's lounge and put the bag in the fridge
What a
for the
treat.
teacher.
That's very special. Did you guys have rules in your cafeteria?
Totally.
See, I had I had so many different schools I went to. My biggest memories of elementary school lunch are 5th grade. And for those of you who listened to our Day in the Life of a 5th Grader episode way back when, I detail lunch as part of mine because burned in my head, we didn't have a cafeteria in that school because it was such a small school. We only had 2 of like each grade level. But there was a kitchen. So, that's strange because if you bought hot lunch, you would walk down the hall and then they would be serving. The lunch ladies would set up like these long cafeteria tables and they would serve from behind there. But you could see the kitchen in the back because we could go help sometimes load the trays into the big dishwasher. And then you walked back to your classroom with your tray or your milk. So I always just bought milk. And so when you say rules, we just ate in our classroom, which was so fun. But you guys, because we could sit on, I had the coolest teacher, if you guys remember from that episode. His name's Mr. Rockefeller. No,
wrong
Miss
one.
Trope,
Sorry,
Miss Trope was my fourth grade teacher, one of my fourth grade teachers. But you could, we'd sit on our desks and no rules. But I think that was because Mr. Rockefeller was super cool. And you guys, in my memory, Mr. Rockefeller wasn't in there. I'm certain he must have been sitting there eating his lunch. But in my memory, it was just a free for all. And we would sit on our desks and the boys would like wad up their, hamburger wrappers and throw them at us. Or it was
like hot lunch jam.
It was a huge social. I wish. It was a huge social event, but I don't remember there being rules. And I had other cafeterias, many other cafeterias in my grade school life. I just don't remember. I'm certain there were. Did you guys have that?
We had a giant, this was the biggest of rules. For some reason it had to be quiet. I'm not sure why why does it need to be quiet? I'm not sure why that's a thing. And so the principal installed a traffic light in our cafeteria. And when the light is green, you're fine. Go about your business. When the light is yellow, y'all are getting squirrely. Calm down now. And when the light turned red, that meant instant silence.
Oh my God.
You are officially out of control.
You're like
Stop
lab
talking.
rats.
It was like being a lab rat. But it totally bombed because all the yellow light meant was you're not in trouble yet. And then it became a goal to try and turn it red. Like, let's see if we can turn the light red. So that
That's
didn't
amazing.
work.
I also feel like school lunchtime should be a time where you could just be silly and laugh and, stand on the table and sing Hot Lunch Jam if you want. Pull out your instruments. I have a hard time agreeing with the whole it has to be at this level of volume. Let kids be kids. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I don't think we had a volume restriction. But wait, we had like the lunch ladies to serve the food, and then we had aides who were like the lunch ladies in the cafeteria, but they were called aides.
Oh, yeah, the lunch aide.
The aide. And we just called them aide.
Oh, like you called, like address them like that? Be like, hey, aide?
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible.
Very impersonal.
And then you'd have a lunch monitor. That's different from the lunch lady.
Wow.
Like the person who walked around with a whistle, like it was gym class.
Did you go to
And
military
like
school?
I know, it sounds like it, doesn't it?
Well,
Can
we could
just go
only
back
get
to Mr.
dismissed.
Rockefeller was the governor of
That's
New York
right.
working in your classroom.
He had shaggy hair and a beard and wore a lot of corduroy.
It was a side hustle.
I remember having to keep our table clean. Like that's the way you got dismissed to go from lunch. Like the
Yes.
lunch
Dismissal.
aide would come by. Yes. And somebody always had to get that nasty bleach rag, like from up where you dropped off your tray, wring it out, and then wipe your table down. And then you hopefully did it well enough that the aide would come and say, okay, you're dismissed.
Oh, I
Dismissed.
forgot
you
all
just
about that.
Husker Du'd me a little bit, Carolyn, because I have a thing where I can walk into a restaurant and we have to leave because it smells like a wet rag.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm like,
wet rag.
can't eat here. We
Oh,
have to leave. And now I'm realizing that's where it comes from because this rag has been sitting in here for days and you just take the rag out and clean down and clean your table.
And then
in
your
the lunchroom.
hands smell like it for the rest of the
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember how much your lunch cost?
No. I didn't buy
70,
it, so.
60 cents maybe.
Mm-hmm,
I
that
think my
sounds
first
about
one was
right.
50 cents.
Yeah.
50, and you got a lunch ticket. So your 50 cents would buy you a lunch ticket. And I remember milk was 4 cents. 4 pennies.
Yeah.
Were you in like Laura Ingalls time? Were you...
Yes,
No,
I
it was
was.
like 5 for white and 6 for chocolate.
Yeah. I
Oh, it
think
was
mine
more for chocolate.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
Oh,
more for
really?
chocolate.
Okay.
See, I'm thinking it was, but I can't be right because I bought chocolate milk. I took my lunch all the time, but I always bought chocolate milk, and I can always remember having a coin. And I'm assuming it was quarter, but you're telling me it was probably a dime, right?
It was, or a nickel.
Maybe it depends on where in the country you were and how subsidized
Oh,
the
true.
milk was. I don't know. But I remember it being like a dime or a nickel, like 10
Someone
cents
check that for
one.
us.
I remember when it went from 4 cents to a nickel. And then you had to there was all of this adjustment you had to do from bringing 4 pennies. I had to scrounge up 4 pennies, but now I have to scrounge up a nickel. That's different. That's totally different.
I remember the lunch ticket thing being for like a whole month. I never got one because I only bought lunch occasionally. And then Verna, our friend, she would be hole punching like the day, and so everybody would be digging out their ticket out of their pocket.
We just paid gas.
Okay, once high school came, then everything changes, right? Because now we have a la carte
and open campus.
We were open campus.
We didn't have that, but so you guys got to leave.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and we did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we crammed into my friend Tracy Hawkins's, either Tracy Hawkins's red Ford Mustang convertible, or this is going to be in like 1985, 86, or my friend Michelle Waldrop's. You guys, she had the coveted white Volkswagen Rabbit.
No, I knew you
and
were going to say a rabbit.
We all crammed into the car, so in either that little Mustang or that little Volkswagen Rabbit. Picture, 8 of us probably sitting on laps, and this is in Scottsdale, Arizona. And so we would go to the McDonald's in McCormick Ranch, or there was this really good deli, and I'm almost positive, hopefully if someone, because I know a lot of my friends, or by a lot, I mean like 2 of my friends from Saguaro High School, where I went in Scottsdale, Arizona, still listen. I'm pretty sure you guys, it was called Casella's Deli, is that right? But I'm almost positive it was also in McCormick Ranch. Best turkey sandwiches ever. So good.
Yeah.
We would go to the bagel store.
And was that, could you walk to that, or did somebody have to have a car?
You'd have to walk through the woods. It would take a little while, but you could. Yeah.
A little house on the prairie.
Yes, in the snow.
Erica, that sounds like
uphill both
really
ways.
like treacherous.
No, it was like big suburban Long Island. Like there was like a big, playing field kind of lawn around the school. But then you could go out onto the road and walk to the bagel store, but it was a lot faster if you took the shortcut through the woods. And, you'd go out in the woods, you'd, smoke a little weed, you'd walk to the bagel store.
Naturally.
Get your bagel.
Get 18 bagels.
And come back. Yeah, or that was like when the McNugget was first launched, like in 83, 84. And they were 99 cents, I remember, for 6 McNuggets, and I ate a lot of McNuggets.
We were like chicken at McDonald's?
Yeah. But
my high school was like it was a big prison. No windows, can't leave, all the doors locked. If there was a fire, I don't know what we would do. So I was all about the a la carte line. If I ate lunch, it was not uncommon for me not to eat breakfast and then not eat lunch.
Yeah.
And then I'd have practice after school and go home at 5:30 for dinner.
Right.
So if I ate lunch, I would always get a chocolate shake and French fries.
Did you
because
dip?
I was all about nutrition.
And then you dip the fries in the
Yes.
shake, right? Of course, yeah.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah, I went through a one Snickers bar for breakfast and lunch phase. That's now called eating, disordered eating. But
Disordered
right.
eating,
back
yeah.
then, I was like, no, it's okay. Yeah, no breakfast.
When I from this tiny, tiny high school in Washington that just has a lunchroom, right? And then I go to this really huge high school, enormous high school in Scottsdale, Arizona, with, a la carte and a snack bar. I thought it was the best, and I had no friends because I had just moved there. I would go to the snack bar and buy an orange slushie and a Little Debbie Nutty Bar and go sit on the bleachers, like the baseball bleachers by myself, and write letters to my friends back in Washington. How sad is
God,
that?
that's sad.
I know.
Wasn't
maybe
Sandy
Carolyn in
hanging
this
out on
part,
the
could you put a sad violin over that story as I tell it?
Wow. That was definitely pre-Michelle Obama and the
Oh, God.
visiting.
Do we even have a la carte anymore?
Yeah.
It's too dangerous. Okay, one thing that Erica mentioned when she suggested this topic was junior high lunch table ostracism. And I swear, if you hadn't said that, I would never have come up with that as a topic of conversation. And yet that was very real. And so much so that I even wrote about it in my new book, World Wide Crush. Just excuse me for a second while I promote my book. But it's so funny because if you are going to write about middle schoolers, you have to have a lunchroom scene.
Yeah.
And so this might get cut, you guys, if it's not flowing smoothly at all. But I do just want to read you the lunchroom, one of the many lunchroom scenes, because a lot of your life takes place in the cafeteria. But I think it speaks to what you said, Erica, about lunchroom ostracism.
Well, I think your
Okay.
entire adult life actually is just the middle school lunchroom playing itself out over and over again.
Oh my God, you might be
change
right.
status and you change positions throughout different phases of your life.
Yeah.
Like you
And think
never
about-
escape that.
It just has different context.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. So in the book Worldwide Crush, Millie is our main character, and she's in the cafeteria with her best friend Shauna and her two childhood friends, Carson and Hawthorne. Carson and Hawthorne are boys, and she's a little worried about can you still be friends with boys in 7th grade? She's not sure. Okay, so okay, here we go. Does anyone want my applesauce packet? Yes, please, I'll take it. Carson reaches out for my applesauce and puts it in the rectangular divot next to his milk. I used to play with Carson and Hawthorne in the summertime. Now that we've grown up, it's different, though. Sometimes they just hang out on their bikes in front of my house. And last year they helped me get past this crazy cat that thought she owned my driveway. It was really sweet how they caused a ruckus and distracted the cat so I could run to my door. But I'm not sure about being friends with boys in 7th grade, even if it's just at the lunch table or on the bus. But I'm also aware that if it weren't for Shauna, I would be alone in the lunchroom. Sitting by yourself... Okay, hold on. But I'm also aware that if it weren't for Shauna, I would be alone in this lunchroom, and I live in fear of someone switching our schedules. Sitting by yourself in the lunchroom is probably one of the worst things I can think of. It's just you, awkwardly putting food in your mouth, while everyone watches and wonders why you have no friends.
Why do you think I went out to the baseball bleachers in high school? I mean, think about it, you guys. I was a new kid at this enormous high school. The last thing I was going to do as the new student was go into that cafeteria and have to find a place to sit. Thank goodness it was Scottsdale, Arizona, where it was, I could eat outside the entire school year if I needed to.
It's like advertising that you have no friends.
Right. So,
right? Like holding a sign saying, I have no friends.
But to go sit on the bleachers, which were way behind the school, and have a notebook out, it might have looked like I was doing some extra homework out there or, or
you were
whatever.
Watching the game. You were watching.
Nobody was out there. It was at, the middle of the school day, but I just would sit out there, and it had everything to do with not wanting to go in and have to figure out where to sit.
Yeah.
That makes me feel sick to my stomach right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the act of carrying a tray feels very vulnerable to me. When you don't have anyone to chit chat with and make you look nonchalant, walking through the cafeteria holding a tray just looks like, I don't know, there's something very awkward about it.
That scene plays out in, lots of movies that we watched and TV shows, and I gotta say, the next most dreaded experience in the school cafeteria has to do with carrying that tray. And right now my stomach hurts. Mm-hmm. God forbid you dropped it or someone dropped the tray. God. I think this is when I experienced vicarious embarrassment for the first time. Everyone would applaud. Yeah. I never applauded. I want to go on the record saying I never applauded. Even now, I could just be sick to my stomach. When I think of that experience, you felt, I would assume, since I don't think I ever dropped a tray, because man, I got to tell you, I held on to those trays so hard when I walked.
Very precarious.
Carolyn put super glue on her hands first.
Grandma steps, like granny steps, because I assumed if that was me and everyone was clapping and staring at me, it would be the most humiliating thing that could possibly ever happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so much humiliation takes place.
Like walking out of the little door where you pick up the food with that tray, and also if you didn't have a regular table with a crew of friends, you'd have to stand there and scan the room.
Oh God, that was
oh my
the
God.
Worst. And what if they didn't let you sit there, or you went to go sit in an open spot and they said the dreaded, saved.
Yeah,
saved
for Mary or.
It's so universal with the humiliation, because if you guys think about it, every single movie to this day still, and it's not just the movies from our era, the movies they're still making today are the TV shows. If they need to kind of hammer in that this is this kid is being humiliated or being bullied or something, they do a lunchroom scene. They write a lunchroom scene for it.
That's right.
That's where it almost always is.
That's what I mean. You play out that middle school lunchroom trauma for the rest of your life.
Think about that. We're carrying that with us. Carolyn is carrying with her the fear of dropping her lunch tray.
Mm-hmm. I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But what's now though, you can sort of deal with social isolation because you have your phone, right? So if you're sitting by yourself somewhere, you're just looking at your phone, you're engaged. True. But back then it was maybe you had a book with you, but then people would be teasing you for reading.
I think that's why I became a book nerd, because I had to hide in something. Mm-hmm. And that's all I had.
Yeah, always.
We didn't have anything else to hide behind unless you were going to skip lunch.
What they should do is serve alcohol in middle school.
There you go.
That'll solve all the problems.
As a former middle school teacher, I really would appreciate that, having drunk kids come back.
They should have
my
cocktails.
classroom.
Why this exploded on Instagram the other day. Why we got so many comments from people, because people have feelings about the cafeteria, whether it's the food or whether it's something social.
And it was like only 30 minutes of your day, but it was like
or 17. Like
yeah, in high school
ridiculous.
we had like 17 minutes. And I
Yeah.
remember one year in high school my lunch period was 10:45 in the morning.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
me too.
What am I supposed to
10:32.
Yeah.
So dumb.
So dumb.
Okay, Michelle, you want to
Okay,
move
yep,
on to the
I'll
next
move
part?
on. Yep.
Okay.
So school lunches for us Gen Xers meant one of two things, either hot lunch, and we'll get to the items that you all listeners remember the most in just a bit, or for those of us who were picky eaters and who would have basically starved if forced to eat hot lunch every day, it meant lunch from home in a lunchbox. And don't worry, we're going to get to those in just a bit as well. But school lunches weren't always like that. And Erica, you're more than a chef. You're also sort of a food historian. When did the school lunch as we know it come to be?
Okay, so I did a little research on this, of course, because, I'm like you guys, love the research. When universal public school kind of became the law in the U.S., which is sort of in the early 1900s, as the state started to implement that and kids were required to go to school, certain states started serving lunch to the kids because they realized that a lot of these kids didn't have any food. And so it started with a couple of states, and then it sort of gradually grew. And when the Depression hit, kids were coming to school really, really hungry, but also farmers were really suffering. And so state governments started implementing a school lunch program as a way to, get the kids fed, but also to support the farmers, to buy up
Oh, that's interesting.
food from local farmers, and also to just keep local people employed. And so it kind of built slowly from the early 1900s up through the Depression, and then leading up into World War II. Also, because coming out of the Depression, there was so much malnutrition. I mean, our problem today is that kids are starving, but they're fat because they're eating terrible food, but they're fat. Back then, kids were starving and they were skinny. They had no food, and so there was serious problems with malnutrition. And so, as a way to address that, more and more states implemented a universal school lunch, and then in 1946, Harry Truman signed it into law, a nationwide law, that schools had to provide food in public schools. But a lot of states had already started doing it in the late 1800s, and New York and Philadelphia were the two who started the first. They were in the early 1900s, so they were the first ones to have a universal program. And also, just a little shout out for my home state. New York City schools provide breakfast and lunch, and they do it all year round. So in the summer here, when schools are closed, kids can still go and get a hot breakfast or lunch
so great.
for free.
Minneapolis is like that
Yeah,
too.
because there are a lot of
and you
kids-
don't have to. You just show up. You
Yeah,
don't
because
have
they
to
were finding that in the
sign up
summer,
or
a lot of
anything.
kids were going hungry.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of poverty. But also, interestingly, the school lunch standards, the nutritional standards, were created based on malnutrition and kids coming off the Depression. And so they were very caloric back then, because often that was the only meal that kids were getting, a solid meal. And then leading up to World War II, they were trying to fatten up the boys for the draft, because a lot of boys back then wouldn't pass the Army physical because they were too thin.
Wow.
Yeah. Now it's the opposite. The Army can't get anybody
Yeah.
who can do the 20 push-ups and isn't fat.
Yeah.
But back then, people were so skinny that the Army said, let's get these kids fattened up so we can get them in the draft and get them into the war. So yeah.
And just to clarify, like the kids who are fat and can't do any push-ups, that's a function of poverty too.
That is
Like,
absolutely a
that's-
function of
yeah.
poverty and of terrible food policy over the last
Yeah.
100 years. And that's a whole other show and story.
Right.
And yes.
We touched on it a little bit, though. Listeners, go back and listen to the other episode we did with Erica. It's such a great conversation, and it was just like food fads of the 70s. But we did kind of touch on that a little bit about the kind of the up and down
The
of
policies.
the policy and why certain foods. I'm remembering as you're talking, I'm remembering you kind of educating us on margarine. When we were like,
right.
what?
Margarine, the evil stuff.
Isn't that funny though? Like, looking back, would you have classified your school lunches as caloric? I
Yes.
mean, now I look at it and it's obvious, but
Very.
at the time, I had no idea.
The amount of
I mean-
butter they used to slather on
Yeah.
stuff, and it was super caloric. Yeah, and my mom always because I was this fat little kid, she always blamed it on school lunches. She was like, "Well, that's because you always wanted to buy lunch, and I let you eat those lunches, and so you were fat." And I'm like, "Oh, way to not take responsibility for anything, Mom."
I just feel though like the hot
Gravy, you have a hot lunch. And so turkey a la king, I think, also included like some peas and carrots maybe. And I didn't get it. And when I was reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the White Witch is offering the kids Turkish Delight. And I didn't know, I thought Turkish Delight was turkey a la king. I thought it was the same thing. And she's using the Turkish Delight to lure the children into Narnia. And I'm like, I don't understand why this is a draw.
awesome.
Like, why do they want to go to Narnia for the turkey a la king?
That's
I don't understand.
Also, you guys, things like turkey a la king for school lunch, those aren't lunch to me. That's like dinner. Like, I don't like turkey a la
dinner.
king, but if I was going to eat turkey a la king, I wouldn't have it as lunch. Lunch is like a hamburger and tater tots or pizza or sandwiches or a burrito or some of the lunches were like full on like old people dinner. Like the dinners they would serve at like the nursing
yeah.
home.
And then the kids would be like nodding out like methadone addicts, like afterwards and all that.
That's right. And this is kind of probably a sexist kind of thing to say, but my memory is that the boys would just eat anything on their plate. Like you were saying before, Kristen, it's like, or maybe it was you, Michelle, but like anything on there, people were just eating it, and you'd look at them and go, how are you eating it? The boys just finished everything.
They did.
And the girls were a lot pickier, and I would be kind of the same as you, Michelle. Like they'd ask for your turkey a la king, as when you didn't eat it. They just wanted to eat it.
They were hungry.
Even my green beans.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I'll
love
trade you
that
my
you
potato
thought
wedge for it.
Turkish Delight. That's so funny. Because Turkish Delight is also kind of weird and gross, too.
I didn't have any idea. I had never heard of it.
Yeah.
And so the only reference I had was turkey a la king. And I think that's why I got them mixed up, because I had never heard of this thing, Turkish Delight.
That's like
I hope there are lots of Narnia readers out there, or they're lost right now.
when I was a kid, I didn't know the difference between the word Gentile and genital. Like, I thought they were this. And my grandfather used to refer to it, because we were Jewish, like non-Jews, as the Gentiles. And I would be like, oh, wait, I thought he was Gentile. Genital. I was like, Grandpa, what are you doing?
Don't call people genitals. Okay, I'm going to move on to our list. Is that all right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, of course, we had to ask our society members on social media about their favorite hot lunch. And I want to ask you three, what do you think came in first place?
I just think pizza.
Pizza.
It's got to be the rectangle pizza.
Got to be, right? Wrong. It's not. It was high. It was very close. But you guys,
Okay.
you know what got the most love? And I think we will all agree that it's well deserved. The school lunch hot rolls.
What's
I don't
that?
even know what that is.
The hot rolls that would come like on the side, like say it was like chicken something. You
Oh,
would
like
get
a
hot
dinner roll?
like a dinner roll, like the hot rolls.
Oh, like
yeah.
we could have included sides. Oh, okay.
People had feelings about the rolls.
feelings! Everybody, it was the most mentioned.
Oh.
Second, coming up a close second, was the little carton of chocolate milk.
Yeah.
Right? But the school lunch hot rolls, people have memories and feelings. And then, yes, pizza Fridays, pizza whatever, square pizza.
Yeah.
And I love so many people mentioned always with corn. Why corn?
Corn.
Why
Why
corn?
pizza and corn?
Yes.
Because it was cheap.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
after
cheap.
we just heard what Erica shared and everything.
You
And,
know why it was pizza on Friday?
No.
Because of Catholics.
oh, yeah. Yeah, 'cause of Lent.
Lent.
When I tell you about my cold lunch.
Not even Lent. Like if you were a Catholic, you didn't eat meat on
Well,
Friday.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So pizza was
Okay.
Friday. Or fish. But yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Okay,
fish
well-
sticks. I remember
No.
getting fish sticks a lot in March.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that must be a
Lent.
Catholic
Because
thing,
of
too.
Lent, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's when McDonald's serves their
Filet of
filet
fish.
o
Fish
fish is always on Friday. It's like $1.
Fish.
That's why they
Fish
introduced
goes in
it
and
for
orders it.
Catholics. That's why they brought in
Yeah.
the fish item.
Oh God, that's funny.
Here's a trivia question for our listeners
Okay.
who are like long time or like devoted listeners. Which episode did we say a very, very famous, sadly now deceased musician went into a local McDonald's here? And Kristen, how did he order it?
I would like a filet of fish.
I mean,
Those
who
of
else
you
would
who
it be?
listened to that
You're
episode,
in Minneapolis.
shout it out.
That's right.
It's
Hint,
tiny purple
Minneapolis.
self. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, other
There you go.
other things, and listeners, you guys, thank you so much for your very enthusiastic response to our school lunch crowdsourcing. I just couldn't possibly get everything down, but things that were mentioned more than a big handful of times were burritos, English muffin pizzas. Now, that was something we made at home a lot.
We made that at home. Yeah.
But apparently a lot of people got them in school lunch, which is lovely. Beefaroni, but the person who said that called it barfaroni, but however said she actually loved the barfaroni.
I liked barfaroni. I liked it.
Tacos, that was another one I did like.
Taco
I did
Day.
like Taco Day.
I did like Taco Day, and the little squeezed tube of sour cream.
We never had tacos.
I didn't have sour cream.
Oh,
You know what? I
cool.
wouldn't have eaten sour cream as a kid, though.
I never even heard of a burrito until probably I was like well into high school. Like I feel like
There were only tacos. Yeah, we didn't have burritos either.
we only had
That's
hard
like foreign
tacos, like
food.
the
did.
old El Paso
Yeah.
taco in a box.
Yeah.
That's all we had.
But I
That's
never
what we
even-
had in school, but they were so good. Kind of
never
like
heard of
the
a burrito.
classic. You guys still, when I go to Taco Bell, I order the OG crunchy taco. Just the two crunchy tacos. I love it. Okay. Mac and cheese tater tots, Carolyn. Sloppy Joes, mashed potatoes, gravy, and a roll. The roll came up a lot. Kate reminded us of the hot lunch cinnamon rolls that serve for dessert. Do you guys remember those?
No.
The
I
cinnamon
didn't
rolls,
get
and
those.
several people mentioned this too, that they always seem to be served with chili or spaghetti. Always, and it's true.
Well, that's
It was like, if it was like chili day, we were going to have, and I just, that Husker-Du'd me a lot. I was like, what? I totally remember that. Chris says their Monday hot lunch was always the Fonz. It was Sloppy Joe on half a bun with shredded lettuce and cheese. Probably left over from Sloppy Joe Thursdays. How Gen X can you get, she said.
I love that they think it's not a sloppy Joe. Like that's just a sloppy Joe without a top.
But
it's
I
called
have
the Fonz.
questions, Chris. One, why did they
the
call
Fonz?
that the Fonz? And two, if you're going to call a school lunch the Fonz, shouldn't it have been served on Tuesdays instead of Mondays?
Right. I was just going to say.
Right?
At 8:00.
That's right.
You guys,
7 Central Time.
too many of you out there, too many of you liked the runny beef over mashed potatoes, and it was really
Liked
only
it?
and it was really only like 3 of you, and that's too many. That's
Yeah,
too
that's too
many
many
people.
people.
Did you ask people what their most despised thing was?
No, we just said your most memorable.
Oh, memorable. Okay.
I
Our
think it'd be
inst-
chow mein.
Oh, I liked the chow mein.
Oh, did
Yeah.
you? Oh, I didn't like stringy meat.
It had a lot of
products.
celery in it, though. Like,
Yeah, you gotta pick that out and shove it to the
yeah,
side of your divot.
Celery, yeah.
Our Instagram follower Carolyn remembers something called a flying saucer. It was fried bologna topped with a dollop of mashed potatoes and covered with melted American cheese. And then,
Oh, God.
and then Instagram follower Melissa chimed in to Carolyn. Yes, that in her school they had them too, and they were called potato boats. So I think we're going back to regional school.
Very
lunch.
regional. I wonder
Yeah.
if that, like, because, like,
don't
in,
know.
where is that? Like, St. Louis, that whole, like, fried bologna thing? That's like a.
Oh, is that a St. Louis
I
thing?
think it's a, like,
I
lower
don't know where.
Midwest
Carolyn,
thing.
where are you from?
Wow.
Okay, and then many people mentioned now, and those of you who have been longtime listeners, or have at least listened to the 4 episodes that I've probably mentioned this on, you're going to know why I even have a hard time mentioning it. Many of you like the school's Thanksgiving lunch, which is turkey gravy and pie. And if you know anything about me, you know I'm having terrible flashbacks just reading that because I barfed that exact lunch in the school library in 4th grade while I was in my first week as a new student.
on carpet, which I'm sorry, I just can't get over. Barfing on the carpet was the worst.
Yeah.
And then
It
they
was
would
so
bring
bad.
out, like, that barrel of that stuff, that, like, choker
Yeah, we
stuff.
talked about it.
Like those
Right, that
flakes.
smells
Yeah,
kind of like
yeah,
bananas.
like the sod, and it
You
sort of
knew
smelled like
when
bananas.
You smelled that anywhere in the
Someone-
school, like, oh, watch where you're stepping. And it was just
I
sitting
forgot
on
it
the
was in a
ground.
barrel. Like you roll the barrel out.
Yes.
You just spread it over
Custodian
the
would
bar.
come and sprinkle it.
Yeah. So gross.
It's awful.
Well, not everyone got hot lunch, of course. Some people took their lunch from home. Do you guys remember? Were you guys hot lunch people or cold lunch people?
Both.
Cold.
I was both
I was
too.
pretty
I did
much
special
cold.
days. I was mostly cold, and I would circle the special days on the calendar. What was in your cold lunch? What did you bring from home? A bologna sandwich on white bread with mayo. And I think that is a flashback to cold lunch.
Yeah. That's the classic Gen X lunch.
It is. That's the classic Gen
Yeah.
X lunch.
Bologna on
And I'd
wedges.
always have,
Yeah.
It's a sausage. Here, hang on. I have a picture of it.
Okay.
It's just like a sausage that you slice like salami.
Huh.
It just tastes a little
like a
different.
summer
It's just like a
sausage.
hard
How do you
salami.
spell
like
that?
A summer sausage.
TH.
Thuringer, Thuringer.
oh, just like it sounds.
And then I always, sometimes maybe I'd have SpaghettiOs in my thermos. And you guys, I swear I can still smell what that
Yes.
smelled like. when
That
you
was
guys
like
do
a real
that
treat.
thermos.
If my mom gave me like something hot in a thermos, that was like super, or soup. That was
Soup,
like,
I would do
special
chicken noodle
day.
soup.
Noodle soup.
but only when I was
Yeah.
like little. As I got older, she gave up on that. That didn't happen. But like, yeah, like a sandwich, or yeah, I don't even know. But then there was like this point where like I went on Weight Watchers in like 7th grade.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
And I remember bringing cottage cheese for lunch.
Because that's diet food.
Yeah.
Right.
Cottage cheese. But like for some reason, like we didn't have like containers. Like she didn't want me bringing like Tupperware to school in case I threw it away. So I took like a styrofoam coffee cup, filled it with cottage cheese, and then like put foil over it. And I remember sitting at the lunch table eating that. And my friends are like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm on Weight Watchers." Ostracized. me
Was there a
even more.
canned pear in there too?
Yeah, probably.
Canned pear on
Canned
top.
pear.
That's your fruit.
There's probably like saccharin sprinkled on it.
Yeah.
Sweet
The
and
thing
low.
that will always take me back, though, I mean, I also used to get like some sort of treat every time. So whether that was a hostess treat or depending on if we were like with my stepfather or not, because I think I've told you guys too that it was very healthy when we were with my stepfather, and then when we weren't with my stepfather, it was not healthy. But it was like maybe a couple Oreos or whatever. But you guys, the thing that will always take me back to my school lunches is my mom would cut an apple, but so that it didn't go brown, because I didn't like to just eat an apple whole. She would squirt lemon juice on it so
Wow.
it wouldn't turn brown, and it still turned a little brown. But it's really like tangy when you bite the apple, and just that kind of taste and smell of lemons on an apple will take me right back to
Very Proustian for
elementary
you.
school. What?
I always
The
had
Proustian Madeleines. Your apple.
I had an apple also in my lunch every day, and it went directly in the garbage.
Yeah, because it was always mushy. Because they were terrible Macintosh apples in the 70s. They sucked.
Or like a
Or
Red,
Red
Delicious.
Delicious. Ugh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a Red Delicious. And my mom would also always put a napkin in the lunch, and that pissed me off. I was like, I don't need a napkin. No one uses a napkin.
Yeah.
So I would like
had
just
to use
throw
a
it in the
napkin,
garbage.
'cause I had Cheetos every single
Wow.
cold lunch I had from like
Wow.
first grade to when I took up to college. It was the same lunch. It was a ham and cheese sandwich, Cheetos, and a Little Debbie Star Crunch.
Wow.
which was like-
That is a kick-ass
man.
lunch, Carolyn.
You had good
except
parents.
Fridays.
no
well,
kidding.
Yeah, except it was, I mean, the same thing every time. Except, again, on Fridays, because I was Catholic, we so during Lent, we actually ate meat the rest of the time on Fridays, but it was just a cheese sandwich.
Oh,
so it was
right.
the exact same
No
lunch,
ham.
just minus the ham. And just
Hey,
cheese.
On white
speaking
bread.
of those
Wonder
Star
bread.
It was like, so my lunch treat would be, you know, like, I don't even
a
remember.
banana.
Yeah, a banana or like trail mix, but like with no M&Ms in it. You know, like dried apricots or some shit like that.
Dried fruit.
Yeah, dried fruit or like a granola bar in the old days.
That is a slap in the face.
But I was like obsessed with snack cakes because they were like so forbidden. Like all I wanted was like ringdings, and like I would like save up my allowance and like sneak downtown to the store and like binge, like, you know, I was like a drug addict. But in 3rd grade, I had this best friend, Christine, and her mom gave her like a snack cake every day. You know, like your great moms and not my mom. We would get like a devil dog, whatever, every day, scooter pie. And in 3rd grade, she fell, I think, ice skating actually, and broke her leg.
Full circle.
And because she had a broken leg, like for some reason she wasn't allowed to go to the cafeteria because they were afraid of like her getting like knocked over or something by the hordes. So she had to eat lunch in the classroom, and my teacher was like, "Do you want to eat with Christine in the classroom every day to keep her company?" And I was like, "Yeah," because that was cool. Right? And also because I knew that every day she had one of those snack cakes, and she shared it with me every single day.
Oh, bless you.
Cut it in half, and she gave me half of her snack cake
Oh.
because she had them every day, so they weren't like forbidden fruit. You know, they weren't cracked to her. She was just like, "Sure, you can have half." And
That
it
is
was
the
like-
danger of forbidding things.
And I was like, "Please don't let her leg ever heal up because I want this to go on forever.
Right.
Please keep your broken leg."
Yeah. Yes,
Hello world is a song that we're singing.